members of the public and press. Welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee on the 10th of December. This meeting is a report meeting being live streamed and recorded. We'll hand over to the Democratic Services team. Dave?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. If we can start this morning meeting by way of a roll call of the members present, please. So first on my list is Councillor Buchan.
Yes, I'm present, and the paperwork.
Oh yes, submission of members can indicate they've received the papers as well. That would be helpful. Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Cassidy joined us? No. Chair, Councillor Hall has papers.
I'm here and all the papers.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yes, I've got everything. I've got my papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I have everything. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Yes, I'm present. I can see everybody and hear everybody, and I believe I have all the papers.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Loynes this morning. Do we have joining with us either of our parish councillors, Councillor Littlefair or Councillor O'Brien? No. Claire Wilson appears not to have joined either, and neither is Superintendent Cooney. We also have present in the meeting as well Councillor Tony Richardson. So that concludes the roll call. Just to remind members that if they could put their microphones on mute during the meeting, please. It just helps with any background noise during the meeting. And if we're required to have any votes, they'll be done by way of a roll call or simply by a show of no dissent to any decisions this morning. Thank you, members. Back to you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Dave. First item, apologies for absence.
Just the apologies we received from Councillor Loynes, Chair.
Thank you. To receive any declarations of interest by members. There are none up to now. Right. Minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of November rather.
Yes, Chair, if I could.
2020 to follow.
Yes, Chair, if I could members' indulgence, ask those to be deferred to the next meeting, please.
Okay. Number 4, no items, no audit items. We go to number 5.1, recruitment of independent persons. Hand over to Hayley Martin, please.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This is a brief report following a decision made by yourselves on the 1st of October where an application pack was agreed in respect of the appointment of 3 independent persons, which we are legally required to have. Since that application pack was agreed, we've gone out with an advert. This has been on social media, and we've received at the moment 5 applications have been sent out. We've not received any actual applications back, but there's still a good bit of time to go yet. The closing date for those applications is the 15th of January. And this report is just to note the progress that's been made so far, and we'll come back to members following the closing date. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there was no applications, what would be the progress in the future?
I think we just have to, we could extend the application period. We also have an informal arrangement with the other authorities in the area so that we could share if we needed to.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. Accept the recommendations.
Chair,
Okay.
I think Marjorie had her hand up at one point there.
Excellent.
Sorry.
I think Marjorie would like to ask a question, Chair.
Sorry. Marjorie.
Well, I just wanted to make the comment, really, Chair, that we are very vulnerable at the moment, as I believe we only have 1 independent person active for Hartlepool. And whilst I appreciate that we can borrow from one of the other three authorities, that in itself is a bit of a problem, because our management and governance arrangements are completely different to the other authorities. So in some ways, that's not really a very helpful offer. And I don't quite understand why we have to wait, even if we do get applicants in, why it will be the May full council that would approve them. Surely it would be in our own interest to do this earlier and to do it as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Marjorie's just said, and I just wondered, rather than just having the advert put on social media, because social media is something that is foreign to me, and that's on purpose. I don't want to join in, thank you very much. So it's just a case of maybe other people might see it, and to be fair, the people you're probably looking at are people in my kind of age bracket, because they're able to go to meetings more easily. So it's unlikely, I think, that a lot of people would see it on social media that would be interested. And I just wondered if there were other ways that it could be put to advert. Thanks, Hayley.
Hayley?
Yeah, Chair, I think the last report did agree that we would also advertise in the local newspapers. It's not just social media. And in relation to the appointment for May, I think May was considered because that's the end of the current independent person's term, but I'm happy to take, if we do get applications that we can put forward, we'd be happy to take those to an earlier council.
I think at the moment with COVID, we've got no heartbeat out at the moment. Have we got that in the future, or months or whatever, heartbeat?
I can check that with the comms team.
Denise?
Thank you, Chair. On Heartbeat this year, we've stood that down because we've been doing regular newsletters, so we can put it in the next newsletter, Chair, as well, if that would be helpful, if it's timely. But I think the one that we've just done has already gone to print, so we've missed this next one. It might not be timely, but it's something we can pick up going forward.
Well, we're going forward to May at the end of the tenure of the independent person now, so yeah. Okay. Right. Thanks, report from Hayley. Thanks. We're moving on to 6.2. Is Craig Bundrud, is he about? Yes, he is. COVID-19 and Hartlepool update presentation.
Yep, thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to sort out the presentation. Actually, Joan, is that a presentation you just put up there? I have an updated one that I have on my system.
That's fine. That was the one that I'd been sent, so I shall just remove that one.
I was just going to say, I was just trying to see if I can get it up. This is now going to be problematic, I guess, if I try and put that on. Hold on one second. Actually, I think it might be easier if I email it to you, Joan, and then
okay.
If you can see if you can put that on. I don't seem to be able to share the screen at the moment. Right, we'll see if that works. The joys of remote technology.
Don't worry.
It was going so well up till now.
Just bear with me. My Outlook's endeavouring to open.
Is it there, as I might be able to?
It is, yeah, it's here. I'm just trying to open it up to transfer it over. Right, we're nearly there. It's just opening up. Apologies, everybody.
At least it's up to the minute data now anyway. What's the best we've got?
Hot off the press.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So yes, this is just an update as to where we're currently at in terms of COVID-19. Can we have the next slide, please, Joan?
Okay.
Which we've been asked to present to you. The latest picture showing the number of cases across the whole of the pandemic for England at the top and Hartlepool at the bottom shows we've seen a similar pattern to the England cases. These are the weekly COVID cases. What we're seeing there now is a decline in the cases. You can see that spike there in the bottom graph where that was just prior to lockdown, where we think we were seeing the effects there of people having one last sort of celebration before lockdown, going out before lockdown, meeting friends and families. And I think the combination of that and half term all came together and Halloween to cause us some elements of spread there. But what we've seen since then is that our numbers have been declining quite significantly and they continue to do so. I think we'll come to the actual figures we've got later on in the presentation, but we are seeing it coming down towards the rates of around about 200 cases on average over 7 days, over a 7-day period, which is down significantly from quite a high spike previously. Can we have the next slide, please? Again, that just shows the top graph there, the England rolling average of cases of 7 and 14-day averages, and the Hartlepool one. And you can see that's quite a dramatic fall there in the numbers of cases. So it does show that the lockdown measures, people have been really good in terms of the way they've been complying with the measures. And obviously that's had a massive impact there on the cases as we head towards into tier 3 there. So can we have the next slide, please? Overall, the death rate has gone up slightly. It is obviously with our small population, even small numbers can cause a bit of a fluctuation within those numbers there. But again, that shows that consistently we've had a higher rate than the England sort of rate across the whole of the pandemic period again. But it does sort of reflect the pattern. And I think, again, that links back to what we know about how it affects people in terms of issues around deprivation and existing poor health. And those elements as well. So if we can have the next slide, please. Looking at the density of cases, it's what you would have expected in terms of where we're seeing the cases coming through. So it's in those areas that are the areas of higher population, which is easily reflected on that map. So it's not too much of a surprise where we're finding the cases. I think what we're seeing is from a lot of the data and information we get back, a lot of it is we know is in household transmission. There have been, over the course of the pandemic, cases and transmission in care homes. We're not seeing as much of that now at the moment. We do see it occurring in staff in care homes predominantly rather than residents, which is a slightly different picture to where we were at the start of the pandemic. We do have some areas, and we are following up all of the areas like schools, care homes and businesses and community settings, which are outlined in our outbreak control plan. And so we do have quite a good picture of where the cases are occurring and where we do get particular outbreaks. We're having outbreak control meetings to work with partners to make sure that those are managed effectively. So you know, the picture's not what we would expect, rather, given our populations. It's slightly different. If you can have the next slide, please. Slightly different picture there when we look at the density of testing. So obviously, on the previous slide to the north, you can see there was quite a significant number of cases, but the testing isn't as high as we would have expected up there. And I think that's where we need to do a bit of work in terms of you know, getting more people tested, because the more people we get tested, the more cases we find, and then we can get people to isolate, which means we can stop the spread. I think one of the interesting points up there is we do have the testing stations, and they are the local walk-in testing stations are serving the north of the town, and I think we can do more to promote those as well and increase the capacity there. But I think you know, we do see quite a lot of people, as you can see on that map from across the town again, are attending for testing, so that is still a positive. So we've got the next slide, please. As you'll be aware, we've moved into the new tier system, and we are monitored and assessed on movement through the tiers on a variety of different metrics. And that's not just the case numbers, which we've got there, December the 5th and November the 26th case numbers and case rates, but also other factors such as the over 60s rates, because obviously over 60s are more vulnerable. So, you know, we need to look at those rates, and they're also considered. There is no set figures that we have in terms of coming out of the tiers. It's assessed in the round, and they look at all of these factors when they consider whether we want to move. So just giving you an indication there as to where we're at. You can see from the top box, November the 26th, that's our 7-day rolling average was around 251 and 268 per 100,000. You can see we've come down quite a lot for December the 5th, and we are still on that trajectory going down, and you know, quite significantly reduced the rate in the over 60s as well. So it's positive in that respect. The one thing I will say is, whilst it is coming down and has come down quickly, we've come down from a high rate of cases, and that would still be classed as a high rate of cases as well. So we do still have more work to do, and I think particularly in terms of you know, looking at restrictions that are possibly going to be eased over Christmas or are going to be eased over Christmas. I'd like us, and certainly I'd be happier if our figures were a lot lower as we go into that period. Can we have the next slide, please? And again, those show our positivity. That's another factor. So the number of tests that we do, it's not just based on the number of tests, it's actually the proportion of people who are tested positive. And so we obviously need to get that as low as we possibly can. Looking at that now, our most recent, on the 5th, positivity is 10.4%, and that's down from 13 from the 26th of November. So again, that's coming down. And again, it's still higher than I would hope for that to be. So all these are factors that are taken into consideration when they look at us moving from tier 3 potentially into tier 2. I think we're still in a high position at the moment, and I think obviously we need to really be putting messages out there around how people can maintain their social distancing, maintain the use of face masks, the good hand hygiene as we go forward. Because I think coming up to Christmas, you know, clearly there's the potential for people to be mixing, and we really want to put the message out that people, you know, we've got things like the vaccine coming online. We've got things like, you know, there's good news on the horizon, but we really don't want to let our guard down yet. I think we still need to be maintaining all of the guidelines around social distancing, and we need to be doing that for some time to come. So I think those are the messages we need to be putting out there as we go through the festive season and into the new year. That you know, yes, there are some bright spots you know, emerging, but we still really do need to be maintaining all of those restrictions. So that's the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Craig. Just one question about care homes, because the Prime Ministers are saying that people can go to care homes to visit their loved ones and elderly relatives in care homes. Couple of questions. I mean, is that north and south? Because one constituent said to me, it's very hard to get into care homes at the moment. And also they've got testing, like lateral flow testing, you know, whatever. Is that happening in Hartlepool or not? or can you any information about the care homes? Is it across the board with all care homes, or just one or policy in other care homes across the board? Thanks.
Yeah, the care homes, it is quite a complex situation at the moment. Initially, 3 care homes. I don't have which ones to hand, but we can find that out. We're in the first wave of the lateral flow testing and having those tests rolled out. And I can double check, go back and find out when the next set are. So they were issued, I believe, with the tests last week. There is some complexity around this in that the care homes have to have the right setup to deliver the tests and have the rooms and the trained staff to do so. And I think that's down to the individual care homes themselves. And I think also there are other challenges as well around potentially care homes who may have outbreaks, so we can't allow or care homes aren't allowed to have visitors in if there are any outbreaks within those homes. So I think it's a lot of different factors will impact on each individual home as to whether they are able to allow visitors or not. So it's a little bit more nuanced than just opening them up at the moment.
Thanks very much. Marjorie?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions really, so I'll just start at the top of my questions and give them right. I'm concerned about schools in particular at the moment. I'm aware there are a number of schools have bubbles that have been sent into isolation and children have been sent home along with teaching staff. How prevalent is that at the moment in Hartlepool? Are all schools involved, or are there some schools that are more involved than others? On the testing front, I'm concerned that maybe not everyone that should be getting a test is getting a test, and that's because they're not presenting for a test. And some of that will undoubtedly be down to the fact that we still have in Hartlepool a large cohort of elderly people who live alone and don't particularly have family networks. So if they don't have a car, how are they supposed to get tested? Because they're very loath to get on the bus and possibly would be too ill to get on the bus. So they're at home and I want to know that they are going to be picked up and how that's going to happen. And the same comment really within the general population, that regardless of age, if you are a lone parent or a lone adult, then again, there is an issue in Hartlepool about the use of cars and the availability to use a car. Obviously, we don't want them getting a taxi if they believe that they're going for a test and they have symptoms. And particularly, we wouldn't really want them getting on the bus either. So how are those individuals supposed to actually get to a test centre? And what monitoring are we actually doing about workplaces within Hartlepool? I'm aware that there have been outbreaks. We are a part of a Tees Valley and slightly wider than that go to works area. So people are coming in from places like Peterlee and Easington, Middlesbrough. People from Hartlepool are also doing the return journeys. So we have that movement of work area that we are part of. And obviously that puts us at risk. Now, I'm aware also that some work settings have got, and I'm loath to say it, but I'll use the term because we'll all know what we mean, repeat offenders of isolation sections. So, you get a phone call in to say, I've been in contact with somebody, or somebody I know has been tested and found positive, so I'm on 14 days leave. Now, from a personal point of view, if somebody was saying that to me and I were an owner of a business and they were on their 4th or maybe 5th absence, I would actually be looking at the fact that they must have some quite risky movements within their personal arrangements. That means that they are having those repeat circumstances. And I am also concerned about the Christmas arrangements that families will be making, because undoubtedly it will mean that there will be an increase in incidences of COVID in January and early February. So I'm just concerned about what advice we're giving to families. Thank you.
Quick.
Okay, thanks. I'll try and start from the top. I have made a quick note of those, so if you can keep me right, Councillor James, that'll be great. Schools. Yes, we support schools. We have a team of people who are working with schools to give them advice and support on isolating bubbles and general infection control advice as well when they do have cases. It is, I think. We probably have seen cases in pretty well all schools in the area, and I think you'll see that there are clearly some schools will have higher numbers of cases, such as the comprehensives, but again that reflects the numbers of people and pupils that are there. And I think we are doing some work with schools where we've identified there may be some particularly higher numbers and looked at that in a bit more detail and then supporting some work going forward, because I think one of the things that schools do is they reflect the communities around them. And I think if we're seeing higher numbers of cases in the community, that is often reflected in the school as well. So we're also looking at how we work with the schools and work with the communities around them to sort of try and address some of those issues. In terms of, I think, was it testing? Not everyone presenting with a test yet. We know that is an issue, and I think at the moment we've got 3 testing sites in Hartlepool. We have the 2 walk-in sites, which are local testing centres, which were set up to deliver that more localised testing as opposed to the drive-in site at the marina. It would be ideal, I think, if we could have a testing site in every area, but I think that's unfortunately we're not able to do that. And we have targeted those 2 testing sites at the moment. As I said, it's where we think that the uptake of testing was lower. We did do some work earlier on in the year to again assess how people were accessing the testing sites, and I think it would be better if we were able to put them in more of the localized testing for exactly those reasons that some people may find it difficult to get to the site. At the moment there is quite a lot of testing going on in different places as well, and I know some GPs are able to access lateral flow testing now as well, and I think that's being picked up within some of our GP practices. So there are more options coming online at the moment as well for those people who are symptomatic. So it is something that we are reviewing on a regular basis and an ongoing basis. And I think one of the challenges I think we have is that we don't want to get people confused with this plethora of testing options that's coming up. So we are quite conscious about that, putting that in our messaging as well, that we do make it available. But yeah, I think there are challenges around that, but I think hopefully the local testing goes some way towards addressing that. It's that is the challenge. Monitoring of workplaces. Yes, we do that. Sylvia Pinkney's team have got an excellent system set up where we get notified through a regional system, a national system rather, which tells us, gives us a note of the cases that test positive and all their contacts, so that if they're identified as being in a particular workplace, they're followed up. And Sylvia's and her team have done a lot of work on working with businesses to make sure they're COVID secure and that they've got policies and procedures in place. We are aware of businesses that if they do have multiple cases, that there is a little bit more work done with them. We do have outbreak meetings as well if we do identify outbreaks within businesses to provide support, and that's done often in conjunction with Health and Safety Executive and PHE regionally as well. So I think certainly in terms of businesses and workplaces where we've identified challenges, we are on top of that and are able to give advice to those businesses as well. And I think a lot of it, you're right, there are places where there have been kind of repeat cases, and I think often when we've looked into those in a bit more detail, it's you can put as many of the measures in place, but it's also ensuring people take responsibility as well and follow those restrictions stroke elements of advice as well, and that's also one of the challenges, I think. But I think certainly within workplaces, I do feel we do have quite a good handle on that, particularly internally. I think we've got an excellent system that's set up, and certainly I think we have been able to, with the work Sylvia and the team have done, we have been able to identify certainly where some of the infections have been coming into the town and borough, and that's been very helpful in terms of work going forward.
Thank you. Denise, make a comment or you put a hand up?
No, Chair, I think Craig's covered everything. I think Marjorie's raised the pertinent points throughout all this. You know, she knows exactly the target groups we need to be targeting, and it's really encouraging the members of picking that up. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda.
Thanks, Jed. I think Marjorie has raised the concerns that I'm sure we all share, and I just want to maybe look at a couple of them in a little bit more from a slightly different angle. I've said this before, so I apologise for repeating myself, but I think the testing is a bit of a problem in that at the moment people only think they have to go for a test if they have symptoms. So I'm not quite sure, and I know this mass testing is going to be rolled out, and you can perhaps say when that's going to start. But I'm not sure that that's the best idea. If you want people to get tested, as in the mass testing, then you've got to stop the idea of them having to have symptoms before they go for a test. Now, I'm aware, and I won't tell on anyone, but I'm aware that some people have gone for a test for other reasons without having symptoms. So, you know, you can do it. And I don't know whether it's right to do it, but I think that the more people we get tested, the better we have to have this control over what is actually going on. Because at the moment, there could be lots of people walking around with maybe mild symptoms, not realising they've got it, etc., etc. So there's that. As far as the over 60s are concerned, you had that those figures. I would be interested to know, Craig, if you have the figures of how many of those are care home people who live in care homes, because I suspect that the vast majority of over 60s who are not in care homes, I would suspect that the number of people in that bracket getting this is quite low. So it would be interesting to just sort of look into that a bit more. And then the vaccine, you know, there's this euphoria nationally over this vaccine, and I think it's totally irresponsible of the government and other people to be saying, whoopee, we've got this vaccine, and yes, we're okay, and Matt Hancock crying. You know, it's not on, because if you listen to people who seem to know what they're talking about, they're talking about another year before we might even feel comfortable about this situation. So this euphoria has to go. And the message has to get out that this is not the answer to everything. And even if you do get the vaccination, it's not saying that everything's hunky-dory and is okay. And I know you're nodding, Craig, and I know you know that. But there's a lot of people who I think will respond to this. And Marjorie mentioned Christmas. You know, it's going to be whoopee. And it's... I know I'm a little bit paranoid, but I think paranoia should be part of everyone's DNA at the moment. And I really do think that message needs to get home. And then, as Marjorie mentioned, that these repeat offenders, and it's good to hear that you've got a handle on the businesses. But I have to say I'm aware, particularly I'm going to mention fast food chains. I think there are people taking the mick. And I think Marjorie's quite right to raise that point. And I think we really do need to support all businesses. And I think it might be a bit more difficult within national businesses, if you get me meaning, to support that. But I think locally, we do need to support what's in our town and just make sure that they are managing the situation well. Because, you know, I am aware that there are quite a number of repeat offenders, as Marjorie called them, within that. Thank you.
Craig? You want any comments?
Yeah, just in terms of the mass testing, yes. I mean, I think that we are working towards getting something in place at the moment. I think it's not a universal panacea in terms of that. We found that out from Liverpool, that the numbers that are detected are quite low. Excellent that they are detected. That means we can identify people and we can advise them about isolation. So yes, it is, and I think it has to be part of a wider programme that we do. We can't just rely on it as a one-off exercise opportunity to do that. It has its place, but I think it has to be part of a wider package. And you're right, we do need to be sort of looking at, and I'm certainly aware we need to look at how we can encourage more people if they have symptoms. And I think one of the things we're seeing at the moment, and again, this goes back to the work we're doing to follow up cases, is that we're noticing that people are presenting with different symptoms and milder symptoms. And I think we've got to really do some work now to get the message out that's, if people have these other symptoms, to consider getting a test. Because I think, the problem is at the moment, asymptomatic testing isn't there. They have to be symptomatic, and you have to go with the right symptoms. And, we're chasing up. We do get notified about people who have been told they've got the wrong symptoms, and we follow that up and hopefully get people tested. But it is an issue at the moment, and we are feeding that back nationally. In terms of the over 60s, off the top of my head, I can try and find out some figures for you. I think we're seeing fewer residents in care homes, as I mentioned before, testing positive. But yes, I mean, there will be a proportion of them within those figures, but I'll see if it's possible to get a breakdown, and we can feed that back to you. So yeah, we'll have a look at that. And I agree about the vaccine. I think my biggest worry, and I'll be unpopular for saying this, is that I think people should be thinking very carefully about who they meet at Christmas. And I think they should be thinking very carefully about who they if they have an older relative or any relatives, and who they meet up with. Because, there is a lot of euphoria about the vaccine. It is good news, yes. But you're right, it's going to take a while before everyone is vaccinated, and it's going to take a while before we get that immunity across the community. And I think we're going to be living with COVID for some time to come.
Yeah.
And we are going to have we may be getting back towards some semblance of normality. People are putting various dates, summer, spring, next year, but we are not out of the woods yet. Absolutely not. Yeah. And we need to be continuing all of these measures for some time to come. Yeah. And I think if the one message I think to put out there is that we need to be careful, very careful over Christmas. We need to think very carefully about who we're meeting with, who we're mixing with. We've come this far. It's the residents of Hartlepool have done an amazing job so far. With the restrictions and with what we've got to live, what we've had to live through. And I think to throw it away now at Christmas would be problematic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig.
Comment from Shane Moore, the leader of the council. No?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just, excuse me, just to clarify a point that Councillor Harrison raised there. I think the issue and the reason people aren't going for testing who aren't symptomatic is because the current guidance from the government is to only book a test if you are showing symptoms, and therefore, but that's the difference between the current walk-in centres and the mobile testing unit versus the mass testing that we're looking to put in place, because the mass testing is specifically for those who aren't showing symptoms. So I think it's not that people aren't going for tests because they're not they're not going to test because they don't want to. It's because the current guidance is don't book a test unless you're symptomatic.
That was my point, Shane. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Marjorie?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back really with a few more questions, really, because I've been trying to sort of piece bits together while other members have been speaking. But I want to ask 2 questions about education. At what point would we consider encouraging and making available vaccinations for people who work in schools? So teachers, non-teaching staff, cleaners, because if we can ensure that the adults are as protected as we can make them at the moment, then potentially that may reduce the incidences amongst children as well. But if we accept that most teaching staff in particular would be under 50, they're not going to be at the top of the list for vaccination, but as a group may need to be higher up the list than the general population of it by age. So I'd want to see, what consideration we could give to something like that, and obviously to send it up the chain to national as well. Still on education, students are being encouraged to have a test before they return home from university at the moment. So assuming that their tests are negative and they return home, will there be any facilities available to ensure that they are tested before they return to university, so that we don't have the carry-in of the problem back into our university settings? So that's a question as well. So you've mentioned local sites in Hartlepool, local centres, but have done a really good job about not naming where they are. So I think because we're being live streamed, it would be helpful to the public that may be listening to actually say where those local sites are. And on a political note, really, one of the first things that the government did when COVID became a major issue in the early spring of this year, was to actually remove elections from the timetable. So there's been no elections of any kind, by-elections or other, this year. Now, I'm not quite sure how government are going to deal with this, but I wouldn't think it would be too advisable for the first thing that happens in the new year is for people to start banging on doors doing electioneering for the May elections. So I would be interested to know whether there is any guidance being given about things like that. And as those members know, I wanted to retire this year. So I've already had an extension of 12 months on that retirement. I'd just like a bit of forward notice to know whether it's going to be extended again.
Thank you. Any comment from Craig or not?
Could I just come in there, Chair?
Yeah, Brenda.
Yeah, as far as the campaigning is concerned, just to on the back of what Marjorie said, I think some parties are actually looking at different ways of campaigning. So it isn't a case of after Christmas get out and knock on doors. It's a case of doing it in a completely different way. The way that we've the way that we've had to change our style of meetings and everything else, really. So I think that a lot of parties, we would find would be looking at other ways of campaigning rather than knocking on doors, just to clarify that.
Can I just comment on that, Chair? Because that's fine for those people that are internet savvy, but we have a lot of elderly and a lot of families that just don't have computers.
No, it's actually the phoning.
Yeah, but I'm saying, and some people no longer have, standard telephone lines. They're all on mobiles. So unless you have numbers for these individuals, you're not going to be able to get them.
Thank you. Denise?
Thank you, Chair. Marjorie, we're talking to government regarding the elections because, like you, we need to be well prepared in advance. So, for example, they are telling us that they are going to go ahead, and what we're but the world changes every day, as we know now. And what we're looking at is obviously they've asked us to look at our polling stations. So as you'll be aware, we've got some in our care homes, and rightly so, we shouldn't be having them in care homes. We'll have to look for alternative locations. And we have some in schools, and we have to work with the schools to find out if we can continue to do that, make sure that the entrances and exits are not going to mingle with the school. So we're working on that. But at the moment, across the Tees Valley, and I checked yesterday, do we all think this is going to go ahead? Are we all happy with the advice government's telling us? We're all in the same boat as you, Marjorie, but it was just literally an update yesterday. We are being told I think there'll be a big push for postal votes, and let's hope we don't end up like what we've seen in the United States. But that's where we are. No. So we are being told to continue and progress as if they're going to happen. So hopefully you'll be able to retire this year, next year, Marjorie.
Thank you. Leslie.
It was to Craig regarding spikes over Christmas. when we looked at the graph earlier, it was good to see that there's been a reduction in people being diagnosed. I suppose the worry for me is, and I suspect it's very worrying for Craig, is if families are going to mingle over the Christmas period, because they've been given 5 days to do that. And so how are we as a local authority looking to advise our residents to take care, in particular our young people who are not going to the pubs but may look to go to each other's homes instead of? I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is, Craig, but I'm just wondering if any guidance has been given to yourselves from government, and how are you going to run with that in Hartlepool?
Craig or Denise?
Do you want to do the education ones, Craig?
I was just going to say,
yeah, I'll do the comms. And we'll
if you want, because I've got quite a few questions there from Marjorie that I want to address as well, if that's okay. Yes, first of all, the education and the vaccinations. Yeah, I totally take your point about teachers, and obviously those were discussions that were had, I think, nationally, and the Joint Committee on Vaccinations have set out their criteria. I mean, obviously when we are in consultation with, we do talk to various different offices, so we can raise these points with national government and that side of things. But I've just had a quick look at the list just now, just to clarify any points that they might have had around that. And I think the only occupational groups at the moment are health and social care workers. So it will be picked up, as you say, within those age brackets. So it might be quite a while before some of the teachers do actually get vaccinated, depending on the rate the vaccines are rolled out. I think in terms of universities, I think the current setup is that they will be tested on their return to the university. At the moment, there isn't any facilities for just generally testing students in their home areas who aren't symptomatic. I think that would generally be picked up with if there were any of these mass population testing initiatives rolled out before Christmas, but there aren't many of those being rolled out before Christmas at the moment. And in terms of local centres, yeah, I do apologise. I should be pushing these all the time. You're quite correct there. So they're at the Greyfields Sports Ground. There's one local testing site on the headland, on the central car park there, and then we have our mobile testing unit. I think it's usually there 5 days a week on the marina. And yes, I think just Councillor Hamilton's points about Christmas, I agree. I think we do need to do some comms around that, and I think it is. Oh, Denise is going to come in with that as well. Sorry. Yes, we're on to it.
Just in addition to the points Craig's raised about universities, Marjorie's, we're working with the Northern School of Art because, as you know, it's classed as a university, even though it's classed as called a school, or in the old days a college. And they've identified their students that they want us to help test as soon as they come back into town. So they'll come in, and we're working with that as part of our mass testing programme. So on the mass testing programme, we've got the DHSE teams and the military planners working with us all next week. So after next week, we'll be able to inform members what's going to happen after Christmas, hopefully, as long as government approve it. And as part of that, as I say, Northern School of Art students will be included in that as targeted groups. With respect to comms over Christmas, Leslie, you're absolutely right. And that we've got a newsletter that's going out in the next couple of weeks, well, before Christmas, and we're going to do some targeted campaigning regarding what is a Christmas bubble, or a Christmas bauble, as we're starting to call them in the Civic Centre, because we're confused with all the bubbles. So just so we can understand. But yeah, so we will be doing some targeting on that. You're absolutely right. And we'll give that to members as well to help you help pass that message on, because I know your constituents and residents come to you for advice. So that I think you need to be armed with that information.
And thanks for the publicity for the university education in Hartlepool with the Northern School of Art as well. Brenda, hand up, no? Marjorie, no?
Sorry, that should be down.
Okay, right. Okay, no more points. So I think Craig can leave the meeting. And thanks very much for your information and the answer questions from all councillors at the moment, which would be very helpful. in the future. So thanks.
Happy to do that.
Great.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye now.
Thanks. Right, I think a lot of comments from Denise, so we move on to 6.3. COVID-19 recovery and renewal. Covering report from Joan.
Yeah, Chair, that is just very brief cover and introductory report, just to indicate that following members' expressions of interest in looking at the COVID response, recovery and planning areas as part of its work this year, Denise and Chris have very kindly agreed to come along today and provide us with a briefing on the renewal and recovery plans that are being put in place. So at that point, Chair, we could just hand over to Denise and Chris.
Yeah. Go to Denise.
Thank you, Chair. The report that attached to the report that John's just covered is obviously something that went to Finance and Policy on Monday, 30th of November last week. The purpose obviously was to give members an update regarding what we've been doing regarding our renewal and recovery plan. When Council agreed, when Finance and Policy agreed this plan in August, we were in recovery up from wave one. We never anticipated we'd be well, I think some of us did, if you were Craig, anticipated we'd be in a wave two, and what we've been looking at is actually how we can continue to do some recovery while we're in response phase. So the report is in front of members for you to be aware of what we've done to restart council services, any infrastructure that we've had to do to help officers continue to work from home. What we're trying to do is to support the mental health and physical health of our staff, and as well as residents. And the report goes on to tell you more about what we've been doing across the adults and children's services service areas, as well as our local business economy. So rather than me go through each page, Chair, because there's quite a lot of detail there, and I'm sure members have had a chance to read it all, and happy for Chris and I to answer any questions with respect to the report and any finance information, which is why Chris is here as well.
Thanks very much. Any comments up to now? No? Just some of the appendix on the 6.3, Denise. One of the comments to me on adult social care services, it said in the first paragraph about to restart support in provided in alternative ways. What's the alternative ways in social care from older people and other people as well?
So that's respect of obviously the daycare centres and the fact that a lot of residents used to go into a centre, as you know, especially at this time of year, and obviously get that social interaction, which is extremely important. We're looking at how we can do that socially, and we virtually, and we're actually being very successful, and a lot of people are actually doing exercise on Teams. We're also looking at how we can go around to people's houses individually over Christmas. We're looking to provide meals, because a lot of people would have had a Christmas meal together, and we're conscious about that, so we're looking at that. So we're looking at how we can continue to look after the mental and physical health of our residents from an adult social care perspective in a different way. And that involves different models. So, for example, the library service, as you will be aware, we're doing stuff virtually there, and also mobile work in there. And the staff have been really innovative. So there's lots of different things that's being done. We can bring in more details of that as part of your scrutiny investigation, if that's something you would like, Chair.
Thanks very much. Another question about libraries. A lot of people saying about local libraries or the hubs in Hartlepool, what would be open, or in the future, what would be the timeline for these?
Well, it depends what tier we're in, Chair, when we can reopen certain services, and at the moment in tier 3 it's very restrictive, as we're aware. So I think it all depends on the metrics that Craig was referring to. So it's, you know, the number of cases, are they falling, the pace that they're falling, our hospital cases and whether hospitals can cope, as well as the prevalence of over 60s as well, which there's about 5 different metrics that the government use. They won't give us an exact target to aim towards because everyone has their own nuances, different regions, which is frustrating in some respects, because it would be good to be able to tell the public if we get to this part on our journey, we'll be in tier 2 and we can't do that. So it's very, very frustrating for all of us.
Okay. Brenda?
Thanks, Chair. Denise, as far as education and vulnerable children are concerned, I know there's been an awful lot of work and nothing's stopped in the meanwhile while this has all been going on, and there's been some great work done. It mentions just in the first paragraph there the priority to support the reopening, etc., and it mentions catch-up programme and blended learning. When I've mentioned blended learning in other areas, people have sort of looked at me, gone out, and I just wondered if there has been if schools have used blended learning, you know, that they haven't sort of rolled out publicly as such, but if they are using other ways of educating children who can't be educated in school at the moment.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Brenda. And it depends on the number of pupils. What we found is if you have a couple of, in primaries especially, if you've got a couple of pupils that are self-isolating, we found some schools just give them a PowerPoint with a load of things to do. But actually, if a full bubble or a class is self-isolating, then it's easy for the teacher to do something online like we are doing today. So it's very difficult for teachers to teach the class of pupils, you know, together with a few pupils at home. It's easier from a teaching perspective if they're all at home, because you're just creating more work for them. Unfortunately, we are seeing more classes self-isolating. We know we've got one problem in one of our schools, and I think we only got over 100 pupils in it this week because of the it's a secondary school, because of the number of bubbles that have mixed.
Had to go.
So, have had to go. So it's easier to do that blended learning. But I know you and I have talked a lot about rotating pupils in and out of school as well as blended learning, and I know Sally's having those conversations with the head teachers. But the government's drive is get them at school, as you know.
So are we confident that all of our children have access to computers, and where they haven't, are we making sure they have?
We're doing everything we can, Brenda. I know a lot of I can find out if there are any gaps. It hasn't been raised for me that there are any pupils that haven't got them, but there will be, won't there?
Now, I know that there were special measures put in place about taking people that are genuinely homeless off the streets when COVID first broke out and was a major issue, sort of March, April time. Now, my understanding is that those individuals are now no longer being supported in that way. They are, where they don't have accommodation, actually back out on the streets nationally. So what arrangements over Christmas and during the winter months are we actually going to be able to put in place to support those individuals? And are we also convinced that we have the necessary capacity to deal with that homelessness demand, but to also ensure that there's no real nice way of saying this really, so I'll just say it. Those families that are most at risk of domestic violence, what arrangements are in place for them when everybody sort of retreats into their home establishments, which actually are the most dangerous places for those individuals and their children. So what arrangements as an emergency measure are available? And if we are sending out another document before Christmas, then can we ensure that those people that need to have access phone numbers, emails, whatever else, that information is provided? Because there will be families that will meet that crisis point and violence will occur, and they're going to need to be able to go somewhere quickly. So I just want to ensure that we have the capacity and that they will have the information that they need to be safe.
Thank you, Marjorie. We are continuing to support the homelessness and rough sleeping as we did earlier during wave 1. We've been successful in getting some funding. The government put a bidding competition in place, as they do, and we put a bid together and we've been successful, and we'll be bringing a report through to Finance and Policy very shortly for members to have sight of and hopefully approve. And you're absolutely right, Marjorie, this is an area that we do need additional resource in, and that is what the bid was about, identifying that additional resource to make sure that we can support those individuals. I mean, it's absolutely awful. There was somebody died on our streets just recently, and that's absolutely dreadful that's happening in any town, but in Hartlepool, which we're more interested in, that just kept me awake for a few nights, and continues to do. And you're right to raise domestic violence, Marjorie. It is a problem, not only in Hartlepool, but nationally. And we will be making sure that we're providing cover throughout the Christmas periods. We do have our refuge. We work with Harbour, our provider, as you know, and we've seen some excellent work continue throughout the whole of this crisis, and we will make sure that we are available. We've put the support hub numbers available, Marjorie, on the newsletter. It is printed, but you're right, we need to do a bit more work on that additional support that those families need. So we'll look into that. Thank you for raising that with me. But they are important areas, especially during the Christmas period. And people, as you're right, whilst we might have 3 households we can mix with, some people, it might be even harder for them, because they won't want to go out. And anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Councillor Buchan.
Thank you, Chair. It's just back to the online learning for the kids. I think that's brilliant, but not everybody can afford the internet. So how are those kids being helped?
I'll need to look into that detail, Bob, because some places can access that, but I'll come back to members as part of this ongoing scrutiny investigation, and if we put that down as an action, we can pick up on the laptops, the Wi-Fi, that broadband, that whole digital side of things to make sure that we're providing that cover.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other comments? Thanks for these presentations this morning. And recommendations to Finance and Policy is 14.1, and will be published recovery plan in recent months in the future. Can you advise that, please?
Sorry, Chair, I'm just getting the report up on my other computer because I like to see your face and I don't have the paper copy with me. So
It's just about the recommendations on
Yeah,
the finance and policy
finance and
committee.
policy considered the recommendations and agreed with them, Chair. So, we're working on our new council plan for 2020 to 2023, and it'll be obviously 2021 by then. So we'll be bringing that through in the new year, but we want that to be agreed before we go into PERDA.
And it'll come back to audit and governance.
Oh, as often as you want us to, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Okay.
Chair, do you mind if I leave? Because I've got a webinar with a minister to get to, I'm afraid, on testing.
I'm at work at the moment.
Yeah, I am at work, but I need to get on a webinar. I mean, leave this meeting.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
And thank you for just starting work in the this year, particularly unprecedented year. So thanks. Right. Going back to 6.1, antisocial behaviour investigation. Over to Joan.
Thanks, Chair. This is just really an update report for members, just to advise of the timings going forward for the presentation of the action plan in relation to your antisocial behaviour investigation, which unfortunately has needed to be pushed back slightly to enable it to hit the next Safer Hartlepool partnership. That doesn't mean that actions aren't being implemented. That doesn't mean that progress isn't being made. This is just purely that a report outlining progress against that will be brought back in February in relation to that. The other area that members had asked for related to the antisocial behaviour complaints and the councillor call for action. Section 2.2 of the report indicates that we will be looking to hold a training exercise now in March for members, but that will be specifically focused to audit and governance members, and that will help inform a wider piece of work for inclusion in the induction programme when we come back in the new municipal year. So, Chair, that's just an update on progress in relation to the actions that have come out surrounding your antisocial behaviour investigation and the piece of work in relation to the councillor call for action.
Thanks very much. Any comments? Look forward in the new year and antisocial behaviour. I think recently we had 2,000 reports of fly tipping in Hartlepool. I think that's an astounding figure, and I think it's on the neighbourhood services recently. I think about picking up tipping on the streets or different areas. I don't know about the different wards, but I think particularly in maybe Oughton Manor, even rural west, with dumping and fly tipping there, and particularly in the central wards in Hartlepool, Burn Valley, Victoria, etc., with a lot of fly tipping as well. So it's a massive trend in Hartlepool. So look at that. Yeah.
Chair, if it would be of assistance, I can endeavour to see if we can get you a breakdown of fly tipping across the various wards, if members would be interested in that.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Well, fly tipping is an actual menace, really, nationally, but is a major problem in Hartlepool. Costs us a lot of money every year to clean it up, and yet there are not a comparable number of prosecutions, Chair. And I think that what we really need to push hard on is that where there is evidence and it can be presented to a court, then we actually take those individuals to court. We also have the powers to seize vehicles, trailers, whatever else may have been utilised as part of a fly tipping episode. So I think that we just need to enable and encourage, wherever necessary, our officers to utilise the law that they have. And the best deterrent for fly tipping would be a huge incident across the front of Hartlepool Mail and on the national news that says Hartlepool's taking somebody to court, they're going to serve a sentence, and they've also been fined X amount of money. or their business has been closed down as a result of legal action. And that's what we really need. So we really need to be able to get these offenders, because that's what they are, into court.
Very good, very good. Yep. Okay, so any other comments? Right. Okay. So we move on to 6.4, which is orthodontic service procurement.
I can present that for you, Chair, if that's okay. This report is just to seek members' views on the engagement that's ongoing by NHS England on the provision of orthodontic services in the North Eastern Yorkshire. This is something that started a couple of years ago, and the NHS England actually came to committee and provided a presentation, and members supported the proposals that they were presented with at the time. Since then, there's been phase 1 has been implemented across Cumbria and Darlington and Durham, and there was a legal challenge before phase 2 could be implemented, and then COVID has put a stop to it, as it has done a lot of things. The legal challenges have been dealt with, and what NHS England are asking the committee now is their views on the 2 options that have been provided, and the options are whether to pick up the process as it was when the legal challenges were submitted and COVID took over, and continue with the procurement process that had already been dealt with and consulted on, or the other option is to abandon that process and start again from scratch. The procurement process that has been undertaken already has shown that there would be an increase in provision within Hartlepool for orthodontic services. Whether this would remain the case if we were to stop and start again from scratch, we don't know, because it would be a brand new process, consultation, engagement that would take some time. If option 1 is picked up and continued, the new contracts would be in place in Hartlepool from September next year, as part of phase 3. I think we're part of phase 3. So they're just asking members for any comments and feedback to them. The closing date for this engagement is the 4th of January. So if members could give any feedback today, I can make sure it's passed on. The NHS England have indicated they were unable to come and present to the committee direct because of being a live procurement process. But they have indicated that if there are any questions, we could email them and they'll endeavour to come back with a response to enable the committee to send their views in before the deadline on the 4th of January. So it's to seek members' views on the options provided.
Yeah. I think with the NHS England, a lot of opticians and dentists are self-employed rather than contracted to the NHS. How many dentists have we got in Hartlepool?
I don't have those figures, Chair. I would have to.
We have a look at the other areas of Tees Valley or whatever. Okay, get that later. Marjorie.
Thank you, Chair, and you've just led me into where I wanted to say, really. But on the answer to the recommendations, personally, I would go for option 2, which is to advertise and start again. But the issue in Hartlepool at the moment, as far as dentistry in particular is concerned, is that those dentists that are accepting work at all are only accepting people who are urgent. Now, I phoned a dentist about 4 months ago, still waiting for an appointment. I'm a registered client with a local dentist. And to be fair, what people are being told is ring us back when you've got an infection. When your face is swollen up and it's sore and you've got an infection, we'll deal with you. And what they actually mean is they'll pull your tooth out. So they're not actually doing any actual dentistry at the moment. They're extracting teeth. That's all they're doing. Other than if you're a private patient and you pay a larger amount of money. I'm sure that they're getting what they need. So, you know, because the excuse is being given, well, we'd have to wear full PPE and we'd have to wipe down after people have been in. Well, tough. Everybody else is doing it and they're providing services from small corner shops to large department stores and everything in between. So I don't see why dentists should get away with saying things like they're doing at the moment. And at the moment, people in Hartlepool are getting no service, not a poor service, no service.
Thank you. Brenda?
Thanks, Chair. I would actually, on the back of what Marjorie's just said, I would actually like a bit more information as to, you know, how many dentists are working in that way, how many dentists may be working in other ways. I mean, from a personal point of view, I wouldn't go to a dentist at the moment unless it was an emergency. But I appreciate that other people might feel more comfortable about going and getting their usual hygiene work or whatever. But I don't know enough about all of the dentists within Hartlepool. I only know my own. To make a blanket statement about exactly what's going on in Hartlepool. So I think it would be good to get more information about that. And also, I don't really feel as though I've got enough information to make a decision on option 1 or 2. And I would like the opportunity of a bit more discussion. You know, for instance, I would be interested to hear Marjorie's reasons for going for option 2. Thanks.
Chair, if you'll allow me, I'll give that reason. The world has changed completely from when we originally did this piece of work. And I'm quite happy that you've asked the questions that you've asked about what dentists are doing in Hartlepool. And I think that we need that information. But because everything has changed and people's needs, wants and desires have all changed as a result of COVID, I think it would be in the interests of getting the best service for everyone to start the process again in the world we're currently living in.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. But I just think we need a bit more information as to what really is going on.
Okay. Can I just come in, Chair? I think
Angela, sorry.
The consultation that we've got in front of us now is specifically for the orthodontic services for children, for braces, you know, corrective treatment, that sort of thing. That is the specific consultation that they're referring to. The bigger picture of dentistry, I mean, we can send members' views back to them on that, obviously, and look to possibly getting them to come to a future meeting to discuss more around that and members' concerns around the provision in Hartlepool. But this consultation is only around the orthodontic services for children.
Thank you. Right.
Could I just ask then, Chair, is there anywhere in Hartlepool at the moment that those services are being given?
As far as I know, there is, just from a personal point of view.
You know where?
I know there's a surgery at Seaton,
right,
that provides orthodontic treatment for children.
When my last one was getting orthodontic treatment, the brace business, which was, I'm going back about 6 years, we had to go to Middlesbrough.
Right.
So do people still go to Middlesbrough or?
I don't know whether that'll depend on where their dentist procures the orthodontic service from, right, or how that works. But I do know there is orthodontic provision in Hartlepool, definitely.
Right. And how long has that been there, Angela? Do you know that?
A number of years.
So obviously my dentist didn't have anything to do with them because we went to Middlesbrough. Yeah. So again, I just feel that we haven't got enough information.
Marjorie?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the comment that I would make for Angela particularly is that I think my comments actually stand on that issue, because my understanding is that orthodontics is not available in Hartlepool at the moment because dentists and those that deal with dentistry of any kind are hiding behind the COVID issue and just saying, oh, we can't provide a service, it's dangerous. Now, you know, with PPE, people can have their treatments, wherever that might be. And my concern also on the one that I've already voiced about extractions means that those children whose teeth are maybe not quite aligned correctly and therefore would normally have a brace to correct are just going to face extractions if they go to a dentist at the moment, because so there is no referrals to orthodontics because dentists are just pulling teeth as the easiest way of dealing with a tooth problem. And I think that's completely unfair, regardless of whatever age group you're in. But certainly for our children, who's obviously they need their teeth to last them a lot longer. So there is a big issue around orthodontics and dentist referrals. And I think that you might find that that's completely dried up since COVID appeared, because dentists are just avoiding dealing with people other than if you, someone said, have an infection and then they'll pull your tooth out.
Thank you. Angela?
Would members like me to, I mean, I can go straight back to NHS England this afternoon with these concerns. They have indicated that they would be able to get information to us. I can try and get as much information from them as I can, and then circulate it to you to see if we can form a view on this specific service before the deadline, but also ask them to come back in the future to talk about the dentistry provision across the town as a whole.
Do you know what I mean? Helpful,
if they come back and you're still not happy, well, that's fair enough. But if we don't ask the question, we might not get the, we definitely won't get the answers, but we might do. You never know.
Can I just ask you, if when you say at some time in the future, could we try and pin that down to the next meeting of Audit and Governance?
Yeah.
Yes. And the deadline to the recommendations is the 4th of January, I think.
Yeah, well, so I would be happy to move, Chair, that we actually take option 2, which would obviously give us more time because it would restart the situation to make sure that the service provided to Hartlepool's children is the best service and that it is as local as possible.
And restart.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll second that.
So we've got a majority, I think. Okay.
I'll go to NHS England anyway and just see what additional information I can get from them, and I'll circulate that to members. And then if you could just confirm which option after you've read that, and if you're happy to still go with option 2, I can make sure that that's submitted before the deadline.
We can try to option 2. Thanks. Okay.
Chair, can we actually vote on that? Because I think we made a decision there.
Well, yeah. Well, we can vote. Jez, can we have a vote?
I
think it was a majority.
Yeah, I think we've got a majority for option 2.
Majority,
which we'll take forward. But I didn't know if you wanted me to try and get some additional information in the meantime, or do you not want to?
Well, I don't mind, Chair, receiving more information. But the additional bit that you said was, and confirm whether you want to go with 1 or 2. Well, if the committee have made a decision to go with option 2, that's the decision.
Okay. Have a vote.
Okay, Chair, so we are voting on members' response to the consultation being that they wish to suggest option 2 to NHS England, okay? If members can please indicate when I ask them whether they are for, against or wish to abstain. Councillor Buchan?
For.
No, we don't have Councillor Cassidy online. Councillor Hall?
For.
Councillor Hamilton?
Yep, for.
Councillor Harrison?
For.
And Councillor James?
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Through you, Chair, just to confirm as well that we will be looking to have a broader piece of work in relation to dentistry provision at the next meeting in January.
Thanks very much indeed. Right, so there's nothing on number 7. Number 8, we've got the receipt the minutes of the meeting of Health and Wellbeing Board on the 7th of September 2020. Any approves those or any comments on that? Okay, 8.1. Nothing on number 9. Tees Valley Health Scrutiny Joint Committee received the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of September 2020. Can we receive those? Okay. 10.2. Feedback from the meeting held on the 20th of November 2020.
If I can take this report as well, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, okay.
It was just the report was just to seek members' views on a suggestion to circulate the Tees Valley agenda papers to all members of the Audit and Governance Committee. We do appreciate we have specific representatives who attend these committees, but we didn't know whether members might find it useful to receive the papers and possibly look at any questions they might have that could be fed to the joint committee through our representatives. At the moment, the committee receives the minutes of those meetings, but it's obviously some delay because we receive them once they've been confirmed by the Tees Valley Committee, which only meets quarterly at the moment anyway. We just thought this might give members a little bit more of a chance to engage on a Tees Valley basis through our representatives. And we would circulate the agenda papers as and when they were received to all Audit and Governance Committee members to give them time to feedback any information, any questions they might want to be asked at the Joint Committee by our representatives. So it was just to get members' views on that, really, about making a more robust engagement with the Audit and Governance Committee across Tees Valley issues.
I think this week.
Sorry, I can see everybody's nodding. So can I actually move that we accept the recommendation that Angela's suggested there?
Yeah. Brenda?
As a representative on that board, I would actually appreciate that. I think it would make it more robust, and then we all know what we're doing and where, and you know what's happening. So I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think this municipal year, Redcar is the chair of the committee now. It was Hartlepool last year, and there was rotation in the Tees Valley authorities. Right.
I mean, all the agenda papers were circulated, and the presentations that were given, and there was some leaflets referred to by Tees Weir and Esk Valley Trust. And if members have any questions or any comments on those, we can feed them back at the next meeting under matters arising from the minutes. But everything we've had at the last meeting has been circulated for information. Thank you, Chair.
I think there was a number of questions or ongoing problems from respite care and the Roseberry issue in Middlesbrough as well. So it's ongoing. Joan?
Thanks, Chair. It's just actually to say, observing the support for that as a proposal, it might actually be something that the committee would like to consider doing across the board when it comes to our partnership committees and boards. So that would include the North East Committee, that would include the integrated care element of the subcommittees that work underneath that. I think the same principle would be useful across all of those if members are supportive of that.
Thanks very much. Yeah, very useful, I think. Yeah. Brenda?
And possibly the Audit and Governance Committee for the Combined Authority, which I'm on as a result of being on here. So, you know, there's that as well. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, absolutely. There's no problem in doing that at all.
Okay. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Angela, another comment? Or?
No, Chair, sorry.
put your hand up. Thanks. Number 11, receive minutes of the meeting of City of Hartlepool Partnership. We presented the antisocial behaviour investigation report, and then it was accepted by the City of Hartlepool Partnership. And then see in the future for the next meeting. Okay. Nothing on 12:13. Any other business? Not to me at the moment. So okay. Right. So the next meeting would be Thursday, 7th of January 2021, and I'll offer a happy Christmas with all the members and residents of Hartlepool, and holiday, and Happy New Year, hopefully better than last year. So see what happens in the near future. Okay, so we can close the meeting, and thank you for support and contributions.
Thank you,
and
Chair.
See you on the 7th of January.
Well, you'll see us next week at full council, actually.
Yeah.
Bye.